sessions, including this one, are being recorded. So you don't, we'll share this recording with you at an appropriate time. Apart from this, any relevant training material or project code or any other information that might have been missed out will follow over an email post the session. With that, we have concluded the basic announcements. Right now, we are standing on 75 participants. Vyomesh, ready when you are.
Yeah. So Aniket and Shabnam, if you are okay, we can start, or you want me to wait for a couple of minutes? I leave it to Aniket, Shabnam, and Bhavin. If you can just reply in the chat box.
Okay.
Shabnam says, please wait 2 minutes. Okay, so we'll wait for 2 minutes.
Okay.
And we start at 6 sharp.
Okay. We are on 77 participants right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just start sharing my slide deck.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so is my slide visible?
Yes, your slide is visible.
So we are 80 now. Can we start? Already.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So once again, welcome back, everyone. I think it has been almost 5 months that we are assembling together for part 2 of this session on ICDS, that is income computation and disclosure standards. So I once again thank Aniket for giving me this opportunity to have this second session with you all. And I'm sure you all are keeping well in terms of your health, etc. Before I begin, let me put this on record that the ICOE team is doing a tremendous job, and I see a great improvement in terms of the quality of deliverables, etc., over the period of time. So let me take this opportunity to congratulate each and every one of you present there, and also those who are not present, though they are working with the ICOE team. So a big congratulations to all of you for the work or the efforts which you are putting in supporting the CIT team. I'm commenting on behalf of entire CIT team and not as me as individual. So once again, a big thank you from the entire CIT practice, and look forward to work together in a long run and grow together with the firm. Now coming back to today's session on income computation and disclosure standards, session 2. We have already covered ICDS 1 to ICDS 6 in the last session. But it was somewhere it was the last day of January, 31st of January, if I remember the date correctly. So before I actually go on to the today's topic, I would like to ask you all one question, and I would request Abhishek to have the poll quickly so that we can get it going.
Okay, I'm launching the poll now.
Yeah.
Polls are in progress.
Yeah, so this is the question, guys, for you all. Be honest. I want everyone to vote, please.
We have 65 responses of 84.
Okay. Maybe a couple of seconds more and then we close.
Sure.
All right, so approximately the ratio is 70-30 is what I can see. 71% honestly say no, they don't remember, and 29% say yes, they do remember or they have revised. So let me recap what we did on 31st of January 2020, and I'm sure you will remember this. It was India New Zealand T20 match. Those of you were there with me in that training room, and the match went into the super over, and we all stopped the session in between it after the lunch break, and it was around 14 runs needed in the super over, right? And we watched that super over, if you all remember. Now tell me if you remember that super over or no in the chat box. Yes, yes, yes. Perfect. See, so how is this? Yeah, so be it, Aniket. It's okay. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Work with fun is always welcome, and learning with fun is always welcome. See, you see the responses here. Most of you say yes. You remember. You remember. You remember. Right. So if we can remember the cricket match, then why not this? The reason being, two, we are somewhere very much attached to cricket. Yes, we are very much fond of cricket. Second, we may not be that fond of ICDS as a topic per se. And the third reason or the practical reason which I see is that in this period of January to June, you might not have worked on many assignments which had ICDS. So I'm not blaming you that you don't remember. I expected this, let me be honest. And it is fair. I don't want, or I never expected you to remember everything. It is part and parcel of our life, and this is how it goes. Unless we practically work on it, it will not click with us. So the reason why I went back onto the New Zealand cricket match was that the memories. We don't have any problem with our memory. It is just that we need to have a liking towards the subject. If we have the liking towards the subject, we will automatically remember what we had discussed at that point in time. That is the reason I thought that I should have this poll and correlate it with that cricket match. So uh, uh, I know 71% of you don't remember. So what I'll do is, before we actually go on to ICDS 7 to ICDS 10, we will quickly recap what we had discussed in the earlier session, and then we go on to ICDS 7 to ICDS 10. It will not be possible for me to run through the entire ICDS 1 to 6, but I'll try to cover the major aspects of ICDS 1 to 6 in a fast forward or a recap manner, so that you can just correlate or remember at least what we had discussed the last time. And the way I have structured this particular session is we will be recapping quickly from 1 to 6, then we move to 7 to 10, and towards the end I have included the practical aspects of the reporting of ICDS. How do we report the ICDS in form 3CD, etc. And towards the end we take the questions, etc. If we have any questions in between, you can post it in the Q&A box or in the chat box. We can take it up at the appropriate time. So moving on to the background or the backdrop of ICDS, you all are aware that 10 ICDSs have been notified, and they're applicable from financial year 16-17, and they're applicable to all the taxpayers following mercantile system of accounting. So as far as our clients are concerned, our majority clients, rather 99% clients, follow mercantile system, and they have PGBP, that is profits and gains from business and income from other sources. So therefore ICDS will be applicable to almost all the clients as far as we are concerned. No separate books of accounts are required. It is meant only for normal tax and not for MAT. Why this ICDS? Because different accounting standards are available for corporate SSCs. We have Ind AS coming in, we have accounting standards. For non-corporate assessees, we don't have any accounting standards. So therefore, different alternative accounting treatments were available to different assessees. And therefore, different tax positions were being taken by different assessees, though they are belong to the same industry. A simple example can be, we take two corporates, one following Ind AS, second following the normal IGAAP or the erstwhile accounting standards. You yourself will see a difference in the profit and loss account as well as difference in the profit figure. So the government didn't want to have this alternative accounting treatment as an option available to the assessees. Therefore, they have brought in this particular uh, ICDS into picture. And there, the department or the government's view is that the assessees always try to, recognize the expenses as early as possible and postpone the revenue as late as possible by virtue of something called the concept of conservatism or the concept of accrual, etc. So therefore, the government tried to bring this uniformity and clarity in computation of income. This is the backdrop. Key impact areas, ICDS 1, accounting policies. The concept of prudence is diluted. We had seen in ICDS 1 that the expected loss or mark-to-market loss, which were earlier allowed, now it is not allowed or they are disallowed under the ICDS. So any expected loss or mark-to-market loss will not be allowed unless it is specifically allowed in other ICDS. Substance over form. So the legal form is not relevant. What is relevant is the actual substance. Mandatory disclosures. So we know that you might have also done the tax audit reviews which come from the audit team. And clause 13 of the tax audit report deals with these disclosures in relation to ICDS 13D, 13E, and 13F. All these three are the disclosure requirements. So this is the impact of accounting policy. Absence of prudence is something which you need to be mindful of. All those expected losses, mark-to-market losses, you can go through the earlier presentation once again. And if you have any doubts in that, we can discuss that again offline. Revenue recognition, that is ICDS 3 and ICDS 4, percentage completion method has been mandatory for services also, where the duration of service is say more than 90 days. So if you are having service of less than 90 days, you can follow project completion method. But even in case of service industry, if you have more than 90 days, then percentage completion is mandatory. Completed contract method not permitted for construction contracts, which was earlier permitted. Retention money taxable under POCM. I think we have also covered a couple of case studies on retention money, etc., while we discussed ICDS 3 in our earlier discussion. So this will ignite the litigation in terms of the retention money. Certainty of collection not relevant for interest income, which shall accrue on time basis. So this also we had seen in ICDS 4 that as far as interest income is concerned, there is a concept of real income theory that until and unless I have a right to receive, there should not be any taxability, or the concept of accrual should be there for me to pay tax. But now ICDS says it will be accruing on time basis, irrespective of whether it is an NPA or whether that debt is recoverable in the near future or not. Especially in the current situation of COVID, for example, there is a possibility of any loan not getting paid in a timely manner. At the same time, there are deferments for the loans, if you are aware that the RBI has also granted, the deferment of EMIs for various term loans, including housing loan, business loan, CC loans, etc., any term loan for that matter. So there, though I will not be paying EMIs, but the interest meter will continue, I am responsible to make the payment of this interest, say after August. So assuming the extension is given till August and my EMI will start say from September, So for this period, 3 months, I am not required to pay the interest, but this interest will be definitely payable in the subsequent year, and my duration of loan will get increased proportionately, right? So here again, this situation will be a, because we also had February and March in this period covered, which was in the last financial year. So therefore, this particular issue is relevant for taxability of interest, whether it will be taxable on time basis or whether it will be taxable on accrual basis. Because if you see, the banks did not have right to receive because they had postponed the moratorium. They have given a moratorium period. So where this moratorium period is granted, what happens is I'm not required to pay, and at the same time, the bank does not have the right to receive the interest. So even if you say I don't have right to receive and I go strictly by ICDS, it says it shall accrue on time basis. तो भले बैंक को वो लोन का इंटरेस्ट नहीं मिला है, it means for the period of February and March, they will be required to recognize that as their income on time basis. So this is something which will be an issue for banks as well as NBFCs or even other body corporates who have given loans, but they have granted the moratorium period because of this COVID-19 situation. Interest on income tax refunds will be taxable on receipt basis. Government grants is taxable as revenue receipt unless given on depreciable asset. This is something which we will cover today in ICDS 7. Forex fluctuation, we discussed ICDS 6. The difference on monetary items to be recognized as income or expense on settlement or conversion thereof on the last day of the financial year. So if the exchange difference relates to monetary items, it is to be recognized at the year end. If it relates to non-monetary items, then there is no recognition or no mark to market is required. As far as premium or discount on forward contract is concerned, it is to be amortized over the period of contract if it is in relation to monetary items. If it is not in relation to monetary items, then it will be considered only at the time of settlement and not before that. Exchange difference on such contract to be recognized as income or expense. Contract to hedge the forex risk of firm commitment or highly probable forecast transactions to be recognized on actual settlement. So this is what I said, that in relation to the forward contracts also, if they are in relation to non-balance sheet items, that is, if they don't relate to any receivable or payable which is there on my balance sheet, which we call as monetary items, it is to be recognized only on settlement and no mark to market is allowed in relation to the forward contracts also. Borrowing cost, this we will cover in our today's discussion again, attributable to acquisition or production of qualifying assets to be capitalized, and there is a formula given for capitalization of general borrowing. This is what we'll discuss in detail subsequently. Provisions, again, this we will discuss in detail today, the provisions and the contingent assets, contingent liabilities. So there was this retrospective amendment by the Finance Act 2018. Just to recap, we had discussed this also, but for the sake of completeness, there was a writ petition filed by the Chamber of Tax Consultants in the Delhi High Court. And the Delhi High Court, by giving its judgment, has struck down the majority of the ICDSs because it was not brought through the parliament. It was brought through by virtue of a notification, which was a unilateral measure. So High Court said that if you want to bring in any amendment, you have to bring it through the parliament. So therefore, immediately in the next budget, they brought it through the parliament, and the amendment has been given a retrospective effect in the Finance Act 2018. So all the ICDSs, if you see, ICDS 1 has been given impact or effect in section 36(1)(8). ICDS 2 and ICDS 8 have been given impact in section 145A. 3 and 4 is given in section 43CB, that is the percentage completion method, etc. ICDS 4 again and government grants, etc. has been given in 145B. Foreign exchange, ICDS 6 has been given an impact in section 43AA. So this is a comparison of the provisions of ICDS, Delhi High Court ruling and Finance Act. I'll not go into the details because we have discussed this in the past, and this presentation will be circulated to you, and you can go through it, and if you have any further questions, we shall be happy to take it up separately. So coming to the notified ICDSs, just to recap, I have also included the equivalent accounting standards and equivalent indices here. ICDS 1 to 6 is what we have already covered, that is accounting policies, valuation of inventories, construction contracts, revenue recognition, tangible fixed assets, and effects of changes in foreign exchange. This 6 is something which we have already covered on 31st of January 2020. Then we are left today with, which we'll be discussing today, is ICDS 7, that is on government grants, ICDS 8, that is on securities, ICDS 9, that is on borrowing cost, and the last but not the least, ICDS 10, that is provisions, contingent liabilities, and contingent assets. So as I said, this is applicable to all assessees and various disclosure requirements as I discussed in the Form 3CD. I think this background we have already discussed in the earlier discussion. So I will not spend much time on this slide. So this is how my computation will look like. Again, for the sake of completeness, profits and gain from business or profession. Then we do adjustments as per ICDS, add or less as the case may be. And then we go to the other adjustments as per the provisions of the Income Tax Act. And then we get profits and gain from business taxable under the head or net profit or gain taxable under the head PGBP. Then similarly, income from other sources, we do adjustments as per ICDS, and then we move to the other adjustments as per the Act, allowances, disallowances, etc. And then we get net income from other sources. I'll not go into the FAQs because we have already discussed those. Coming to the very first ICDS on government grants to be discussed today. So ICDS 7 deals with government grants, and if you see the definition of government grants are assistance in cash or kind for past or future compliance with certain conditions. Now, what is important here is the grants which are covered are only government grants, right, and not other grants. Government grants includes, so if you look at the inclusions, subsidies, cash incentives, duty drawback, waiver, concessions, reimbursement, etc. So it is an inclusive definition. It includes subsidies, cash incentive, duty drawback, waiver, concession, reimbursement, etc. It excludes assistance other than in the form of government grants. Assistance other than in the form of government grants. For example, if the grant is given by a parent company which is not the government, in that case it will not be covered by ICDS 7. It will be because here what is covered is only the government grants. So any grants by non-government will not be covered in ICDS 7. Next, participation in ownership. For example, if government is contributing by virtue of say equity capital or participation in ownership, then it is considered as capital contribution and not as government grants. Then another exclusion is assistance which cannot have a value placed upon them. So therefore, if there is no value placed, then it will not be considered to be government grant because it is not measurable at all. It is non-measurable or non-financial support. Normal trading transactions. So for example, I am supplying certain goods to government or government is supplying certain goods to me. it is a normal trading transaction. There is no discount element here. So this will not again be considered as government grants. This will be a normal business transaction. Now here, what is relevant is government. Government refers to central government, state government, agencies and similar bodies, whether local, national or international. So it covers all government bodies, be it local, that is regional level, state level or national level, or also international level, right? So even if the support is given by the foreign government, then it will be considered to be a government grant. So irrespective of whether it is Indian government or overseas government, if a grant is given by virtue of say subsidy, cash incentive, duty drawback, waiver, concession or reimbursement, right? So just to give you a quick example of what is meant by subsidy, subsidy can be something that if you set up a factory in an interior area, in a say backward area in the northeast or in interior of Maharashtra, for example, then government will give you certain subsidies on X amount. That subsidy can be linked to the capital expenditure. That subsidy can be a lump sum subsidy in respect of irrespective of what is the amount that you spend, etc. So this is an example of subsidy. Cash incentive can be a simple incentive which is say which is given in cash, that if you do a particular business, then government will give you a cash incentive of X amount. Or suppose you are dealing in certain essential goods, suppose you are dealing in certain essential goods and you are making losses, then whatever is your loss component, the government will give equivalent cash incentive to you so that you are not at a loss. Duty drawback, that suppose you are exporting certain goods which are of national importance, and suppose you are importing certain goods which are of national importance, in that case also the government will either give you the duty drawback, that is the duty which you have paid, you will be refunded back, or waiver. Waiver is something, waiver of say sales tax, waiver of GST, waiver of custom duty, etc. Concession, so suppose you are purchasing certain fixed assets from the government itself, any plant, etc., or any asset, and the market value of that particular asset is say 1 crore. Government is giving you at a reduced rate of 80 lakhs, that is a concession of 20 lakhs. So this 20 lakhs also will become a government grant and therefore it will be taxable. Reimbursement, etc. So if government is reimbursing certain expenses, so for example, government says that you incur this particular expense and you give us the proper documentation and proof, etc., we will reimburse it back to you. So these are the examples of respective subsidies, cash incentive, duty drawback, waiver, etc., or concession reimbursement. Now moving on to the taxability of this government grant, how it will be taxed, what will be the tax treatment. So the way I have designed this presentation, again similar to the earlier session, is we will look at the pre-ICDS situation, what was there prior to the ICDS being introduced, and then we compare it to the current situation, that what changes after ICDS coming into picture. So now if you see explanation 10 to section 43.1, section 43.1 is nothing but which gives you the definition of actual cost. It gives you the definition of actual cost for depreciable asset. The explanation 10 to the definition of actual cost says where a portion of the cost of an asset acquired by an assessee has been met directly or indirectly by the central government or state government or any authority established under any law or by any other person in the form of subsidy or grant or reimbursement by whatever name called, then so much of the cost as is relatable to such subsidy or grant or reimbursement shall not be included in the actual cost of the asset of the assessee. So here what it says, simple explanation 10 says, if you have received any subsidy from government and if it relates to the asset, that is depreciable asset, then that subsidy is to be reduced from the cost of the asset. We just took an example that if you are purchasing a plant and machinery worth rupees 1 crore and government is giving you a discount or subsidy of 20 lakhs, then the cost to you becomes only 80 lakhs, right? So therefore, this is what it says, explanation 10 says कि आपको ये जो 20 लाख रुपया मिला है वो आपको reduce करना है from the original cost of 1 crore and you claim depreciation on the balance 80 lakhs only, provided where such subsidy or grant or reimbursement is of such nature that it cannot be directly relatable to the asset acquired, so much of the amount which based to the total subsidy or reimbursement or the grant, the same proportion as such asset based to all assets in respect of or with reference to which the subsidy or grant or reimbursement is so received shall not be included in the actual cost of the asset. Simple example, ये प्रोवाइजो का मतलब ये है कि अगर आपने मल्टीपल एसेट्स परचेज किया है, अगर आपने मल्टीपल एसेट्स परचेज किया है, assuming you have purchased 5 assets of 20 lakh each, you have purchased 5 assets of 20 lakh each, तो टोटल कॉस्ट हो गया 1 करोड़ एंड आपको सब्सिडी मिला है 20 lakhs, आपको सब्सिडी मिला है 20 lakhs, राइट? तो अभी ये जो 20 लाख सब्सिडी है, it is not for one particular asset, it is for 5 assets together. So therefore you have to do it on a proportionate basis. ये प्रोवाइजो का मतलब ये है कि ये 20 लाख सब्सिडी को आप डिवाइडेड बाय 5 करो, बिकॉज आपने 5 एसेट्स परचेज किया है ऑफ 20 lakhs ईच, सबका कॉस्ट इक्वल है फॉर द सेक ऑफ सिंपलिसिटी. So based on the proportion of the cost, you divide this 20 lakhs amongst all the 5 assets. तो ये 20 लाख को हम हर एक 5 एसेट में डिवाइड करेंगे. So I will reduce 4 lakhs each. I will reduce 4 lakhs each from each individual asset. This is what this proviso says. Clear? Now, earlier there was a concept of capital receipt versus revenue receipt. There are various Supreme Court judgments also, for example, Sahni Steel, Pony Sugars, etc., where Supreme Court said that आपका सब्सिडी जो है वो तभी टैक्सेबल होगा if it is for revenue purpose. If it is for capital purpose, it will not be chargeable to tax. For example, the subsidy is for construction of a factory, right? If it is for construction of a factory, then it means it is for capital asset. It is a capital receipt, so it will not be taxable. Or if it is to support your working capital requirement, if the subsidy is to support your working capital requirement, then it is a revenue receipt. Then it is a revenue receipt, and therefore it will be subject to tax. This is what is the principle which was held by the Supreme Court in Sahni Steel as well as Pony Sugars. So after these judgments, as usual, India में जो होता है, there is an amendment to the definition of income under section 224. Under section 224. So here is the amendment. Income includes assistance in any form of subsidy or grant or cash incentive or duty drawback or waiver or concession or reimbursement by whatever name called by the central government or a state government or authority or body or agency in cash or kind to the assessee other than the subsidy or grant or reimbursement which is taken into account for determination of the actual cost of the asset in accordance with the provisions of explanation 10 to clause 1 of section 43, which is what we just saw. So ये amendment क्या बोलता है कि अगर आपका subsidy is not in relation to depreciable asset, if it is not in relation to depreciable asset, it will be included in the definition of income. So therefore वो जो argument था revenue versus capital, that will not matter. That will not matter, right? So what is the effect of this amendment? If it relates to depreciable asset, you reduce the subsidy from the cost of the asset. इफ इट डज नॉट रिलेट टू डेप्रिशिएबल एसेट, वो अमाउंट जो है सब्सिडी का वो टैक्सेबल हो जाएगा एज इनकम. So irrespective of whether it is capital or revenue, it does not matter considering this amendment, right? Year of taxability, this is a particular issue which we will discuss in the subsequent slides, that there is an issue of entitlement versus there is a question which will take towards the end of this ICDS 7. In the chat box, there is one question. I'll answer to that. So year of taxability, entitlement versus utilization. Excel Industries Supreme Court says that it will be taxable in the year of utilization and not in the year of entitlement. I have a case study in the subsequent slide. I will cover that. Next slide. I think this is what we just discussed. So coming to recognition of government grants. Grants not to be recognized until there is a reasonable assurance that conditions attached to them shall be complied with and the grants shall be received. So effectively, grants be recognized karoge. I will recognize the grants when there is a reasonable assurance of two things. Konsa two things? One, that the conditions attached to them shall be complied with. Conditions attached to them shall be complied with. Second, the grants shall be received. अगर ये दो चीजों का मुझे रीजनेबल अश्योरेंस है तो मुझे ग्रांट को रिकॉग्नाइज करना पड़ेगा एज रेवेन्यू. तो मुझे ग्रांट को रिकॉग्नाइज करना पड़ेगा एज रेवेन्यू. ग्रांट्स का रिकॉग्निशन कैनॉट बी पोस्टपोन्ड. It cannot be postponed here beyond the date of actual receipt. So assuming आपको ग्रांट मिल चुका है, आपको ग्रांट एक्चुअली मिल चुका है, बट आपका कंडीशन सेटिस्फाई नहीं हुआ है, तो here the ICDS says कि once you have received the grant, irrespective of whether you satisfy the condition or not, you have to recognize this grant as income. This grant as income. Then we also need to consider the Finance Act 2018 amendment, which says that income from subsidy, grant, cash incentive, duty drawback, waiver, concession, etc. It will be taxable in the year of receipt. If not charged to tax in the earlier previous year. तो अगर आपका recognition criteria समझो पहले meet नहीं हुआ है, and therefore you have not recognized it as revenue. Suppose that grant announced हो गया था somewhere in the year 2015 or 2016, but you did not recognize the revenue. Because the conditions were not satisfied. ये जो दो condition हमने अभी देखा, that is conditions attached to them shall be complied with and grants shall be received. This reasonable assurance was not met. Therefore, we have not recognized this as revenue. Okay. So, अगर ऐसा कोई situation है, then you will have to recognize the revenue in the year when you receive, irrespective of when the conditions are satisfied. So, this is what is the amendment by Finance Act 2018 says. Then coming to the treatment of government grants as per ICDS 7. Now, what it says is depreciable asset, it is to be reduced from actual cost. That is what section 43(1) explanation says, which is what we just saw. It is to be reduced from the actual cost. Non-depreciable asset requiring fulfillment of certain obligations. For example, it is for acquisition of a particular land. ठीक है, आपको वो लैंड एक्वायर करना है, उसके लिए आपको सब्सिडी मिलेगा. नाउ लैंड इज अ नॉन डेप्रिशिएबल एसेट. ठीक है, सो आपका कंडीशन क्या है? यू हैव टू परचेज द लैंड. दैट इज द कंडीशन. So it is to be recognized as income over the period over which the cost of meeting the obligations are charged to the income. Okay? As and when you meet the obligation, you recognize this as income. Not directly relatable to the asset. Proportionately deduction आपको उसको reduce करना है, which is what we also saw in the proviso to section 43(1) explanation 10. Then compensation for expenses, losses, or immediate financial support to be recognized as income in the period in which it is receivable. It is receivable, not received, but receivable. That is right to receive. Non-monetary asset at concessional rate. So, for example, 1 crore का asset 80 लाख में मिला, तो asset to be accounted at the acquisition cost, that is only 80 lakhs. Any other grant, that is residuary clause. This is the balancing figure जो ऊपर किधर cover नहीं होता है वो यहाँ पे cover होगा. To be recognized as income over the period to match the related cost. So it is to be recognized on a proportionate basis as and when you incur the cost. Refund of grant. So as I said, you have to recognize the grant as revenue irrespective of whether you satisfy the condition or not once you receive the grant. So for example, I have received the grant, okay, but I am yet to satisfy the condition. And subsequently, I do not satisfy the condition. For example, the grant is say 20 lakh rupees. The grant is 20 lakh rupees, okay? And the condition is I need to complete the construction of factory in 2 years. ठीक है? और गवर्नमेंट ने ग्रांट मुझे एडवांस में दे दिया है. आज की तारीख में मुझे गवर्नमेंट ने ग्रांट दे दिया. And the government says that if you don't complete the construction of your factory in 2 years, you will have to refund this grant. So if I don't satisfy the condition and I have to refund the grant, so what happens at that point in time? That is also covered in ICDS 7. It says if it relates to depreciable asset, then you increase the actual cost of WDV. Why? Because when you might have received this grant, आपने क्या treatment दिया होगा? You might have reduced it from the actual cost of WDV. So therefore, you have to reverse that now. Simple. Others to be adjusted against the unutilized credit, if any, or balance to be charged to profit and loss account. Because other than non-depreciable asset का grant क्या होता है? It is chargeable to tax. So if it is chargeable to tax, उसपे अगर मैंने पहले से tax offer कर दिया है, then in this particular year, when I am refunding it, I will be charging it to profit and loss account. That is, I will be claiming it as an expenditure. Capital approach not permitted. Purpose test has been done away with. So as I said, revenue capital with the amendment of Finance Act 2015. Now the revenue capital approach is not relevant. The purpose test is not relevant. अगर आपका depreciable asset है, so you reduce from the cost of depreciable asset. If it is other than depreciable asset, you offer it to tax as income from business or profession or income from other sources, as the case may be. Generally, it will be business income, and therefore it will be chargeable to tax as income under the definition 224, the amendment which we just saw. Okay. Now, what are the issues here? What is reasonable assurance? Now, again, we saw that the government is very finicky with the word reasonable. So, reasonable assurance is something which is subjective. I have a case study in the subsequent slides, so we'll discuss more. What do you mean by reasonable assurance? Treatment of grant received from person other than government. For example, subvention for parent, handicrafts and handloom. Delhi High Court says that it is not taxable. Then next, whether mere receipt can trigger taxability. Can income accrue pending satisfaction of obligation or condition? Mere receipt not enough. Hindustan Housing and Land Development Trust, Supreme Court. Now here, this particular Supreme Court judgment says that even if you have received the grant, okay, but unless you have the right to use that, you will not be chargeable to tax in respect of those grants. ये केस में क्या हुआ था? Hindustan Housing and Land Development Trust, they were eligible to certain grants, but pending certain obligations, they were given that grant, but they had to keep that in a separate account or in an escrow account, which they were not supposed to use it, right? So उनको grant तो मिल गया, but they could not use that grant. So therefore, the Supreme Court said mere receipt is not enough. You should have right to use that particular amount. Okay. So therefore, this is important. This judgment is important. Whether this judgment will still hold good, considering ICDS 7, the technical answer can be still yes, but it will be subject to litigation because ICDS says the recognition cannot be postponed beyond the date of receipt. Recognition of export incentives. Recognition of export incentives. Can assessee continue to rely on Excel Industries? As I said, I have a case study in the subsequent slides. I will discuss this particular aspect there. Grants related to non-depreciable asset, not requiring to fulfillment of obligations. Will it fall in residuary clause? The answer is yes. ICD is not applicable on the asset which would fall under capital gain. Now this is not relevant because post the amendment of 224, irrespective of whether it is a capital asset or non-capital asset, this is not relevant. So this last bullet is of no relevance in today's situation. Transitional provisions, I think we are already in 2020 now, so this transitional provision does not matter as of today, so it's better to skip this. Coming to case study, grant related to non-depreciable asset. Grant related to non-depreciable asset. Now I want your answers in your chat box if you have understood the concept correctly. Look at this case study. Government of India announced an incentive package for setting up of factory in a backward area. Pursuant to the scheme, A Limited buys a land in the backward area for 10 crores. It is eligible for a subsidy of INR 3 crores to meet the cost of the land if the factory is set up in 2 years. So condition kya hai? That the factory is set up in 2 years. The factory is set up in 2 years. That is the condition. Next, the factory is set up in 2 years and A Limited receives subsidy in the 3rd year. A Limited receives a subsidy in the 3rd year. Okay. So now the question to you is, in which year this subsidy of 3 crores, which is to meet the cost of the land, will be taxable? Year 1, I purchase the land. Year 2, my factory is completed. Year 3, I actually receive the subsidy. So in which year, whether this 3 crore, in which year this subsidy will be taxable? Year 1, year 2 or year 3? In the chat box quickly. Year 3, Abhishek Kane says year 3, Disha Patel says year 3, Shubham Shukla year 2, Sonu Sharma year 3, Monica 3, Bhavna 3. Only Shubham Shukla says year 2, everybody else says year 3. Okay, so majority of you say year 3. Aniket just says year. Kaun sa year you decide? Okay, so majority of you say year 3. Only one person says year 2, and that one person is Shubham Shukla. So here it is an exception that majority is not correct, minority is correct. Shubham Shukla, you are right. The reason being, if you look at the condition, right? What are the conditions? There should be reasonable assurance. There should be reasonable assurance of 2 things. Which 2 things? 1, the conditions being satisfied, and second, the actual receipt of the subsidy. आपको actual receipt मिलना जरूरी नहीं है. What is relevant is only reasonable assurance that you will receive the grant. And the first condition is you will satisfy the condition, the reasonable assurance for satisfying the condition of claiming this grant. अभी इस केस में year 1 में सिर्फ land लिया है, so year 1 में condition is not satisfied because I don't know factory बनेगा क्या नहीं बनेगा. Okay, So year 1 is out of question. Coming to year 2, the condition is actually been satisfied. Forget about the reasonable assurance. The condition is actually satisfied in year 2. मतलब फैक्ट्री मेरा बन गया in year 2. गवर्नमेंट से पैसा भले थर्ड ईयर में आया, बट यू कैनॉट डाउट ऑन द गवर्नमेंट कि मुझे पैसा मिलेगा क्या नहीं मिलेगा, राइट? सी, practically speaking, you may or may not receive the fund from government at the earliest. It may take time because of the bureaucratic issues, etc. But there cannot be a question on reasonable assurance कि गवर्नमेंट से पैसा आएगा क्या नहीं आएगा. एक बार सैंक्शन हो गया तो पैसा मिलना ही मिलना है. You cannot doubt the government. So therefore, the answer to this question is year 2. Why? Because I have actually satisfied condition number 1. So since I have satisfied condition number 1, गवर्नमेंट से तो मुझे पैसा मिलेगा ही, और वो पैसा मुझे एक्चुअली थर्ड ईयर में मिल भी गया है. So therefore, the answer is this subsidy will be taxable in year 2 and not year 3. Okay. So here, had it been non-ICDS situation, वो 2015 के अमेंडमेंट के पहले हम ये पोजीशन लेते थे कि since this is in relation to land, which is a capital asset, this subsidy is also capital in nature and therefore not taxable. But अभी ये argument नहीं चलेगा. Now, if you look at the 224 amendment and the ICDS situation, it will be taxable in year 2. It will be taxable in year 2 because my obligation is met in year 2, and there obviously will be a reasonable assurance that I will receive the grant from the government. Clear? Now, FAQ of government grants on ICDS 7 is the government says that if you have already recognized certain grants prior to ICDS, if you have already recognized certain grants prior to ICDS coming into picture, only the balance will be charged to tax. So in this example, total subsidy entitlement was 10, and you have already recognized in the books till 31st of March 2016 6. What will be taxable in the subsequent years under ICDS is only the balance amount, that is 4, and not the entire 10. So now again we are in 2020, so this FAQ may not be that relevant in today's scenario, but still for the sake of completeness, I have included it in the slide. Now this is the case study on export incentive, wherein the Supreme Court ruling is there in the case of Excel Industries. So look at this example. You can see this, or this example can be for any company which is doing an export, for any company which is doing an export. So A Limited is engaged in the business of providing services to overseas client. It is entitled to duty. It is entitled to duty credit on exports of services under SFIS or SCIS. Such credit can be utilized against the custom duty payable on import of capital goods, or it can be sold to other importers. Such credit would lapse after 3 years if unutilized. On account of exports made by A Limited in year 1, it is entitled to duty credit worth 3 crores. So I am eligible for 3 crores. अभी ये 3 crore में से 1 crore is utilized in year 2. 1 crore is utilized in year 2. Further credit of 1.5 crores is utilized in year 3. Balance credit of 0.5 crores got lapsed as unutilized. So out of 3 crores, I could utilize only 2.5 crores, and 0.5 crores got lapsed. It got lapsed. Okay? So therefore, what is relevant here is whether entire 3 crores will be taxable in year 1, because the condition to be satisfied here is export, which I have already done in year 1. Okay, which I have already done in year 1. So year 1 may, if you look at the criteria for recognition of government grants under ICDS 7, it says there should be a reasonable assurance of me satisfying the condition. अभी ये केस में condition क्या है? The condition is that you should export. आप export करोगे तो ही आपको export incentive मिलेगा. Now this is a case of export incentive. Export incentive क्या होता है? That once you export to a certain level, you are eligible to get export incentives. How can you use this export incentive? Either you purchase the goods, that is you import the goods without payment of import duty, or you can sell this eligibility of export incentive to third party at whatever price you want. Okay? So what happens in this particular scenario? A Limited has utilized 1 crore in year 2 by importing the capital goods. 1.5 crores it has utilized in year 3 by selling it to other importers. Balance 0.5 crores got lapsed as unutilized. So Supreme Court in this particular case said that although the conditions for getting this export incentive has been met in year 1, for this 3 crores, this will be taxable only in the year of utilization. Only in the year of utilization. So Supreme Court held that 1 crore will be taxable in year 2, 1.5 crore will be taxable in year 3, and balance 0.5 crores which is lapsed will not be taxed because it is mere a piece of paper. There is no actual benefit to the assessee in this case for the 50 crores, for the 0.5 crores. Therefore, what is taxable is only 2.5 crores, that too 1 crore in year 2 and 1.5 crore in year 3, that is the year of utilization. So therefore, Supreme Court बोलता है आपको export incentive भले मिल गया है, but it is of no use unless you actually import. Unless you actually import. So therefore, अगर आप import नहीं करते हो तो ये lapse हो जाएगा. तो अगर lapse हो गया, then there is no benefit to you. So since there is no benefit, it should not be charged to tax. It should not be charged to tax. So this is the tax treatment. Pre-ICDS, 1 crore taxable in year 2, 1.5 crore taxable in year 3. This is what I just said. What happens post-ICDS? I believe still this position can continue, but of course there may be litigation because the government will say कि अभी ICDS 7 बोलता है कि तुम्हारा condition जो है वो export है, वो तो तुम्हारा meet हो गया है. Therefore, this entire 3 crore should be chargeable to tax in year 1. But the position of the Supreme Court can still continue even in the post-ICDS situation because right to receive or approval is the main concept and ICDS only deals with the computation mechanism. So therefore, even after ICDS, in my view, Excel Industries judgment of the Supreme Court will still continue. And this position of 1 crore and 1.5 crore taxable in year 2, year 3 should be continued going forward also. Disclosure requirements. So in 13F, you have this disclosure requirement in tax audit report. Nature and extent of government grants recognized during the previous year by way of deduction from actual cost. That is explanation 10 wala. Nature and extent of government grants recognized during the previous year as income, that is other than depreciable asset. Other two are important. Nature and extent of grants not recognized during the previous year by way of deduction from and not recognized as revenue during the previous year as income and reasons thereof. तो आपने अगर कुछ recognize नहीं किया है तो आपको reason भी देना है as a tax auditor. In you have to give a reason in clause 13F why you have not recognized this as revenue, right? So जब भी आपके पास tax clearances आएगा for certain exporters or certain infrastructure companies, you have to see whether there is any government grants or not, or if you are preparing any computation of income or income tax return for such infrastructure company or exporters, you need to check whether ICDS 7 is applicable or not. One. Second, whether they have received any government grants or not. Third, whether they have appropriately offered that government grants to tax or not. Before going on to ICDS 8, there is one question I could see in the chat box. The subsidies granted cannot be distributed depending on the weights of the asset. No, it is not based on the weight of the asset. It is based on the cost of the asset. It is all in financial terms and not in non-monetary terms. Everything is to be considered based on the cost of the asset and not based on the weight of the asset. Moving on to the second ICDS, that is securities. This is only applicable. This will be more relevant for the FS sector, where the securities are considered to be stock in trade. It is applicable only when the securities are stock in trade. अगर security stock in trade नहीं है, तो ICDS 8 applicable नहीं होगा. So therefore, the methods which are here is FIFO, weighted average, etc. is the accepted method. Unquoted or irregularly quoted securities are to be quoted at cost. So therefore, this deals with only listed securities. This deals with only listed securities and not unlisted securities. Unlisted securities or unquoted shares, they say it has to be carried at cost. Okay. So here, if you see what is the change, the change is that they say that it is applicable. So the corresponding accounting standard is AS 13. So you compare AS 13 with ICDS 8. I will not go into the comparison because it is there on the slide. You can go through it. I'll just discuss what is the change. I will just discuss what is the change. So this is the change. Valuation to be done script wise. Here, if you see the second bullet, valuation to be done script wise. And ICDS 8 says script wise nahi, classification is to be done category wise. Valuation is to be done category wise. कौन सा category है? 4 category है. Shares, debt securities, convertible securities, and D, any other securities not covered above. Okay? So what this is, generally we do script by script. That is A limited का share. You compare cost versus fair value or cost versus NRV, and whichever is lower, you take that as the value. But now ICDS 8 says, nahi, individual script wise mat karo. You follow a bucket approach. You follow a bucket approach or category approach. Look at this case study in the subsequent slide. So all the shares of company 1, 2, 3, 4, सबका कॉस्ट का टोटल लो 95, सबका एनआरवी का टोटल लो 70. You compare 95 with 70. You compare 95 with 70, and therefore 70 will be the, whichever is lower, 70 will be the value as per ICDS 8. अगर आप इंडिविजुअली कंपेयर करने जाओ 10 वर्सेस 20 एज पर अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड 13 करते थे तो क्या होता था? 10 वर्सेस 20 10, 15 versus 10 10, 20 versus 30 20, 50 versus 10 10. So you compare 95 with 50, you compare 95 with 50, and therefore 50 will be the cost as per AS 13. But ICDS क्या बोलता है? नहीं नहीं, इंडिविजुअली नहीं करने का. So therefore there will be a notional gain in this example to the extent of 20. There will be a notional gain in this example to the extent of 20. So therefore they are preponing the tax liability, जो कि notional gain को tax कर रहे हैं वो लोग. Look at this live example in today's situation. There are 5 shares: A limited, B limited, C limited, D limited, and E limited. Cost of A limited is 100, NRV is 40. ठीक है, अगर आप एज 13 में कंपेयर करोगे तो 100 वर्सेस 40 40 आएगा, 200 वर्सेस 140 140 आएगा, 300 वर्सेस 150 150 आएगा, 400 वर्सेस 250 250 आएगा, 100 वर्सेस 500 100 आएगा. So you take this total of 40 140 150 250 and 100. The value as per AS 13 comes to 680. It comes to 680. But here it says you have to compare total bucket approach 1100 versus 1080. 1100 versus 1080. So therefore the valuation as per ICDS will be 1080. Okay, as compared to 680. As compared to 680, मतलब 400 रुपए का नोशनल गेन, 400 रुपए का नोशनल गेन जिसपे मुझे टैक्स पे करना पड़ेगा, राइट? व्हाई? बिकॉज ऑफ दिस वन सिक्योरिटी ई लिमिटेड, जिसका कॉस्ट 100 रुपया है बट वो आज मार्केट में उसका वैल्यू 500 हो गया. तो ये जो 400 का जो गैप है, ये गैप बिकॉज ऑफ दिस मेथड हैज बीन वॉश्ड आउट, एंड आई विल बी रिक्वायर्ड टू पे a tax on the notional gain of 400 because my value as per income tax will not be 680 but it will be 1080. तो मुझे कंपटीशन में 400 रुपीज ऐड करना पड़ेगा, 400 रुपीज ऐड करना पड़ेगा टू माय बिजनेस इनकम एज एडजस्टमेंट अंडर ICDS 8. Clear? So again this is the example as per FAQ. The same thing, आप shares का सभी का total लो, debt securities का total लो. So category wise this is how you have to do ICDS value, and you see ICDS value generally will always be higher as compared to the book value as per accounting standard 13. So this pre-acquisition interest, I don't think it is relevant to be discussed here. It is there on the slide. You can go through it, and if you have any doubts on this, you can discuss it with me offline. I don't think it is that much of relevance. So ICDS 8 में एक ही चीज important है that you have to follow a bucket approach. You have to follow a bucket approach, and I think BFSI guys, this may be more relevant for you because the companies who are having shares as stock in trade, it is for them to follow ICDS 8. Borrowing cost, ICDS 9. So we move on to ICDS 9. That is very, very important as far as overall ICDS impact is concerned. This is important because it has a variation from the normal borrowing cost as per accounting standard 16. So scope of borrowing cost, ICDS 9. Borrowing cost define interest and other costs incurred in connection with borrowing of funds, and it includes commitment charges, amortized amount of discounts or premium, amortized amount of ancillary cost, and finance charges in respect of asset acquired under finance. ये सभी डेफिनेशन में इंक्लूड होता है. कमिटमेंट चार्जेस, amortization of discount or premium, amortized amounts of ancillary cost, finance charges in respect of asset acquired on finance lease. All these are included in the definition of borrowing cost. Okay, generally हमारे लिए borrowing cost क्या होता है? It is only the interest on loan. It is generally only interest on loan, but ICDS 9 is going beyond that, and it is including all these in the definition of borrowing cost. Excluded, what is excluded? Actual or imputed cost of owner's equity and preferential capital, because that is capital and that is not loan. So obviously equity share capital and preferential capital will not be included. Only loans and debentures will be included. Now position pre-ICDS. Okay? So this is important. Provision of section 36(1)(3). So let us look at section 36(1)(3). because इसके पहले capitalization of interest होता था under section 36(1)(3) only before ICDS. So therefore this section is important. Deduction provided for in the following clauses shall be allowed in respect of the matters dealt with herein in computing the income referred to in section 28. The amount of interest paid in respect of capital borrowed, the amount of interest paid in respect of capital borrowed for the purpose of business or profession. This will be allowed. This will be allowed. What is important here is proviso. The proviso is important. Proviso says provided that any amount of interest paid, अभी क्या होता था, एक समय तक till one period 36(1)(3) was without this proviso, but matter went up to the Supreme Court in the case of core health, और core health में Supreme Court में डिपार्टमेंट का व्यू ये था कि ये जो लोन है वो कैपिटल एसेट के लिए है, therefore the interest in relation to this capital asset should be capitalized. But the Supreme Court said that there is no distinction between the purpose, that is capital or revenue. Section 36(1)(3) reads as for the purpose of business or profession. Therefore, till the time the asset is used for the purpose of business, it will be allowed as a deduction. After this judgment of core health Supreme Court, as we expect in India, there is an amendment, and this amendment said, provided that any amount of interest paid in respect of capital borrowed for acquisition of an asset, for extension of existing business or profession, whether capitalized in the books of account or not, whether capitalized in the books of account or not, for any period beginning from the date on which the capital was borrowed, beginning from the date on which the capital was borrowed, or acquisition of the asset till the date on which such asset is first put to use shall not be allowed. So here it says if it is in relation to a capital asset, if it is in relation to a capital asset, so ये interest आपका capitalize होगा, it will not be allowed as deduction under section 36(1)(3). अभी इसमें ये जो red highlighted portion है, for extension of existing business or profession, बाद में सेकेंड सेट ऑफ लिटिगेशन होने लगा इस एस्पेक्ट पे, दैट व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय एक्सटेंशन ऑफ एग्जिस्टिंग बिजनेस और प्रोफेशन. So various courts held that extension of business or profession means that there has to be an increase in the production capacity by at least 50%, by at least 50%. तो कोर्ट्स ने पोजीशन लेना स्टार्ट किया कि जब तक मेरा 50% इंप्रूव नहीं और मेरा 50% कैपेसिटी इंक्रीज नहीं होता है, it is not for extension of existing business or profession. So even after the amendment, the courts were taking a position that unless the capital expenditure is substantial, unless the capital expenditure is substantial, capitalization nahi hoga. So therefore, government ne after these judgments, they removed these bold items, they removed this red item, the wording in red for extension of existing business or profession. अगर आप आज की तारीख में एक्ट देखोगे, you will not find these red terms, these red wordings in the act. So now what is relevant as far as today's situation is concerned, any amount of interest paid in respect of capital borrowed for acquisition of an asset, whether capitalized in the books or not, for any period beginning from the date on which the capital was borrowed for acquisition of the asset till date on which such asset was first put to use, shall not be allowed as deduction, shall not be allowed as deduction. तो ये बोलता है मेरा 36(1)(3) का अमेंडमेंट, ठीक है. नाउ आई गो बैक, so the words of extension as I discussed, फाइनेंस एक्ट 2015 हमने डिस्कस कर लिया, कोर हेल्थ डिस्कस कर लिया. नेक्स्ट, डिस्काउंट और अपफ्रंट फीस और इंटरेस्ट पेड ऑन इशुएंस ऑफ डिबेंचर्स. नाउ व्हाट हैपेंस इज सर्टेन debentures or zero coupon bonds are issued at a discount and ultimately they will be redeemed at par or premium. Ultimately they will be redeemed at par or premium. उस पे कोई interest charge नहीं होता है, उस पे कोई interest charge नहीं होता है. Therefore, what government or what Supreme Court said both in Madras Industrial Investment and Taparia Tools is that Madras Investment Supreme Court said that it has to be amortized over the period of the debentures. अगर डिबेंचर 5 साल का है तो ये डिस्काउंट को भी आप 5 साल में डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करो. टपारिया टूल्स में सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने क्या बोला कि there is no concept of deferred revenue expenditure, there is no concept of deferred revenue expenditure, right, in income tax. So therefore such expense will always be a revenue expenditure and it should be allowed in the year 1 itself. However, if the assessee wants to claim it over the period of 5 years, that is the debenture, the term of debenture, then it can do so to have the matching concept. Because अगर year 1 में ही मैंने expense claim कर लिया, तो it will have a distorted picture because the expenditure will be huge and it will not be able to match the revenue. So to match that, to have a matching concept, Taparia Tools had distributed it over the period of 5 years. इसमें डिपार्टमेंट ने बोला कि दिस इज अ प्रायर पीरियड एक्सपेंस, आपको ये एक्सपेंडिचर ईयर 2, 3, 4 में नहीं मिलेगा. बट सुप्रीम कोर्ट सेड दैट यस इट इज अ रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर. हाउएवर इफ द असेसी वांट्स टू डिस्ट्रीब्यूट इट ओवर द पीरियड ऑफ 5 years, they can very well do so. They can very well do so to have the matching concept. दूसरा कंसेप्ट है प्री आईसीडीएस में एंसिलरी बोरोइंग कॉस्ट, दैट इज स्टैम्प ड्यूटी, रजिस्ट्रेशन फी, लीगल फी. अभी हमने बोरोइंग कॉस्ट के डेफिनेशन में देखा कि स्टैम्प ड्यूटी और रजिस्ट्रेशन फी और लीगल फीस को भी हमको इंक्लूड करना है बोरोइंग कॉस्ट में और उसका अमोर्टाइज वैल्यू हमको कैपिटलाइज करना है, उसका अमोर्टाइज वैल्यू हमको कैपिटलाइज करना है. नाउ प्री आईसीडीएस सिचुएशन, देयर इज अ सुप्रीम कोर्ट रूलिंग जो बोलता है कि स्टैम्प ड्यूटी, रजिस्ट्रेशन फी, लीगल फी एक्सेट्रा आर नॉट कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर. Therefore, they should be allowed as revenue expenditure, because capital expenditure means something which gives you an enduring benefit, which results into an asset, but ये केस पे तो मेरा liability हो रहा है, because it is in relation to loan. Which is a liability. So therefore, no asset is coming into existence, and thereby stamp duty, registration fee, legal fee can never be considered to be a capital expenditure. It was always considered to be a revenue expenditure. So again, ICDS 9 is going over and above the Supreme Court ruling in the case of India Cements. Okay? Now, coming to provisions of ICDS 9. Borrowing cost directly attributable to the acquisition, inspection or production of a qualifying asset to be capitalized. Okay? Directly attributable मतलब direct borrowing cost, direct interest cost, direct borrowing cost, इसको मुझे capitalize करना है. Qualifying asset क्या है? Qualifying asset means land, building, machinery, plant, furniture being tangible asset. Know-how, patents, copyrights, trademark, licenses, franchises, and other business or commercial assets, which is there in 32(1)(2), being intangible assets. Last but not the least, inventories that require a period of more than 12 months, that is 12 months or more, to bring them to a sellable condition. Now here, what is important is the criteria of 12 months or more for its acquisition, construction or production for other than inventory is applicable only in the case of general borrowing. For example, अगर मेरा कोई plant और machinery है, which takes more than 12 months, and I have a specific borrowing, or rather I have a general borrowing. So if I have a general borrowing, then capitalization is required only if assets takes more than 12 months. However, if it is a specific borrowing, means the borrowing for acquisition of that asset only, then it is to be capitalized, irrespective of whether it takes 12 months or not. Okay, I have a case study on this, I'll come to it. So जनरल बोरोइंग होगा तो 12 मंथ का क्राइटेरिया अदर देन इन्वेंटरी को भी एप्लीकेबल होगा, बट इन्वेंटरी के लिए it has to be more than 12 months. Okay, irrespective of specific borrowing or general borrowing. So when do you start the borrowing cost? The capitalization? Specific borrowing, what is the borrowing cost to be capitalized? Actual borrowing cost incurred. जनरल बोरोइंग में एक फॉर्मूला दिया गया है, उस हिसाब से आपको कैपिटलाइजेशन कैलकुलेट करना है. वो फॉर्मूला क्या है वो अभी हम देखते हैं. We'll look at the formula. Commencement of capitalization. When will the capitalization begin? As far as specific borrowing is concerned, from the date on which the funds were borrowed. General borrowing में you follow the utilization approach. ठीक है, मतलब जब भी आप यूटिलाइज करोगे तभी कैपिटलाइज होगा, उसके पहले कैपिटलाइज नहीं होगा. Cessation, when you stop the capitalization. Tangible asset में when the asset is first put to use. Tangible or intangible asset when the asset is first put to use. Inventory में when all the activities necessary to prepare it for the intended sale are complete. मतलब जब भी वो inventory ready for sale होगा, when that inventory will be ready for sale, it will be considered to be completed and you stop the capitalization. Now specific borrowing तो simple है, जो भी interest cost है पूरा capitalize करना है. The issue is in terms of general borrowing. Now look at this general borrowing में capitalization कैसे होता है. This is the formula, A into B divided by C. जो rule 80 में formula है, similar formula is here. A क्या है? Borrowing cost incurred during the year except the specific borrowing cost, that is borrowing cost directly relatable to specific purpose is to be excluded. मतलब यहाँ पे सिर्फ जनरल बोरोइंग का इंटरेस्ट और बोरोइंग कॉस्ट ये कंसीडर करना है. B is average of qualifying asset. C is average of total asset. टोटल एसेट्स, ठीक है। अगर फर्स्ट डे पे मेरा क्वालिफाइंग एसेट नहीं है तो मुझे हाफ करना है, जो क्लोजिंग पे है उसको हाफ करना है। अगर लास्ट डे पे भी नहीं है तो भी मुझे हाफ करना है। सो देयरफॉर देयर आर डिफरेंट सिनेरियोस गिवन, B1, B2, B3 is what you can see. So the thumb rule is average, that is opening plus closing divided by 2 of qualifying asset. Similarly, opening plus closing divided by 2 of total asset will be my denominator, will be my denominator. ठीक है, तो ये हो गया फॉर्मूला। अभी हम आते हैं टू कंपैरिजन। Now I compare accounting standard 16 with ICDS. Accounting standard 16 says when do you commence? It commences when three conditions are satisfied, that is incurrence of capex, मतलब actual utilization. AS 16 says actual utilization, but specific borrowing के लिए ICDS क्या बोलता है? Actual date of borrowing irrespective of the date of utilization. So there is a difference for specific borrowing. There is a difference for specific borrowing. General borrowing is same, but specific borrowing में it is a deviation from AS 16. Method of capitalization for specific borrowing. Actual borrowing cost AS 16 बोलता है actual borrowing cost less any income from temporary investment. But ICDS बोलता है actual borrowing cost only. Income from temporary investment is to be offered to tax as income from other sources. So अगर बीच में मेरा कोई इंटरेस्ट इनकम आता है तो it has to be shown as income from other sources and it cannot be reduced from the borrowing cost. This is again a difference from accounting standard 16. So therefore you have to be mindful of this fact while preparing any computation कि आपको चेक करना है कि इसमें से कैपिटलाइजेशन इंटरेस्ट जो अगर बुक्स में ऑलरेडी किया है, you have to compare that capitalization with the ICDS capitalization and do the actual capitalization as per AS, and not as per AS 16 but as per ICDS 9. Cessation, when you stop, again there is a difference. Qualifying asset में it says when it is first put to use, or inventory में when it is intended to sell. Whereas cessation of capital asset AS 16 बोलता है where all the activities necessary to prepare the qualifying asset for intended use or sale are complete. So again there is a difference in terms of cessation also. So always you have to compare the interest as per AS 16 and ICDS and make the necessary adjustments in your computation of income. So here the issues, I will come to the issue here. What is important is the definition of 3613 as we just saw. It covers only acquisition, but here ICDS goes beyond acquisition. It says acquisition, construction or production. So the question is, can ICDS go beyond the definition or can ICDS go beyond the provisions of the Act? Now, as you remember our earlier discussion, in case of conflict between ICDS and the Act will always prevail. So here the question is, can you say there is a conflict between ICDS and the Act and therefore Act should prevail? This will be a matter of litigation going forward. Then I come to general borrowing, the issue of general borrowing which is important. Availability of sufficient own funds, potential controversy similar to Rule 80. Now, I am sure you might be dealing with 14A and Rule 80 issues where there are judgments to say if you have enough own funds, then there should be no disallowance under Rule 80. Now again there will be same litigation for ICDS 9 also. If you have sufficient own funds, and there will be litigation that own funds versus borrowed funds, and the same judgments which were used in 8D can be used for ICDS 9 also. Then also commencement of capitalization is not as per proviso to 3613 because 3613 deals with only specific borrowing. 3613 deals with only specific borrowing, and it says that capitalization will be as per will be from the date of borrowing, whereas here it says only specific from the date of borrowing, general from the date of utilization. So there is a deviation from the Act also. Income from temporary investments, there is a Supreme Court ruling in the case of Tuticorin Alkali which says that temporary investment का जो income है वो आपको reduction नहीं मिलेगा. But Bokaro Steel, Supreme Court says because the facts were different. Bokaro Steel में Supreme Court ने बोला है कि it will be allowed. So therefore, whether to follow Tuticorin or whether to follow Bokaro going forward, again this litigation is there and it will continue going forward also. So I come to this case study quickly and I need your answers in the chat box. I know we are already approaching 7:30, but I will go beyond the time for 15-20 minutes. Please pardon me for the same because I need to cover all the concepts in a proper manner and I just don't want to rush. So look at this case study and I want your answers in the chat box. A Limited is engaged in the business of manufacturing of certain consumer products. It desires to replace its plant and machinery at its factory with a new one at a total cost of 10 crores. It borrows the funds from the bank for this purpose on 1st of April at 20% per annum, at 12% per annum. Full payment is made to the vendor. Full payment is made to the vendor on 1st of July. Payment kabhi hua? 1st of July. For the period from 1st April to 30th of June, funds invested in short-term deposits at the rate of 8%. So, short-term deposit मतलब fixed deposit में रखा from April to June. 3 months मुझे 8% interest मिला. Machinery is supplied by the vendor to the factory of A Limited on 1st of August. On 1st of August. Machinery is installed on 31st of August. Machinery is installed on 31st of August. Right? So, question number 1. From which date will I start capitalization of interest? Question number 1. From which date will I start capitalization of this interest? Quickly in the chat box. Yes, quickly in the chat box. Replies. I am waiting for the answers. Aniket Matre says 1st of April. Others? Subham Shukla 1st April with a question mark. Bhavik Kothari says 1st August. I am asking, when do I start capitalization? When do I start capitalization? Not cessation. When do I start? 1st July, 1st July, no. 1st April, yes. Bhavna, yes. Shubham, and yes, Aniket, you three are right. So, since this is a specific borrowing, because it says for this purpose, it has borrowed for this purpose. Since it is a specific borrowing, so day 1 से ही capitalization start होगा. That is from 1st of April. That is from 1st of April. Okay. Then question number 2, when do I stop capitalization? When do I stop capitalization? On the chat box. Capitalization stop kabhi karunga? When do I have the cessation of capital assets or capitalization of borrowing cost? Yes. Quickly in the chat box. First August, 31st August. Chaitanya Rao, Aniket Bhanushali, 31st August. Others? Bhavna, 31st August. Perfect. When the asset is put to use, right? When the asset is put to use, so asset is installed on 31st of August. मुझे delivery 1st August को मिल गया, but it was actually put to use on 31st of August. So therefore, I will cease the capitalization only on 31st of August. Okay. Last question in this case study. What happens to the interest received from 1st April to 30th of June? जो 8% इंटरेस्ट मुझे मिला है 1st April to 30th June, 8% interest. Can I reduce that from the interest from 1st April to the 31st August? I cannot. So what will be the impact of that interest? What should I do with that interest? What will be the tax treatment of that interest? In the chat box. Saurabh says tax as under other sources. Aniket says same. Chaitanya Rao says IFOS. Sonali says IFOS. Perfect. So it will be taxable under the head income from other sources. It will be taxable under the head income from other sources. Yes, all of you are right. Perfect. Perfect. So you all are with me and you all are awake. So this is the answer which we just discussed. So here what happens is there are other interests also which are disallowed under 40A, 40A2B, etc. if it is paid to related party. Plus there is disallowance under section 43B if it is not paid on or before the due date of filing of return. Plus there is disallowance under section 14A read with rule 8D. So the question is whether should I reduce those interests which is already disallowed? The answer is yes. Only the balance interest will be considered for this purpose because there should not be double disallowance. Okay. Now another important aspect here is question number 22 on this slide. If you see, how to allocate borrowing cost relating to general borrowing cost as computed in accordance with the formula provided under para 6 of ICDS 9 to different qualifying assets. So here what is important, what is relevant is generally as far as income tax is concerned, we follow for capitalization of asset, we follow the concept of block of asset, right? We follow the concept of block of asset. But here ICDS 9 it says you should not follow block of asset, you have to do it asset by asset. So if you have purchased 10 assets during the year, you have to do this formula, that is A into B by C, A into B by C for 10 times, A into B by C for 10 times. अगर 100 assets है तो आपको ये formula 100 बार apply करना है, आपको ये formula 100 बार apply करना है. So therefore they are increasing the work in terms of ICDS 9 is concerned. Disclosure requirement as per ICDS 9, accounting policy adopted for borrowing cost and the amount of borrowing cost capitalized during the previous year. This is what you have to disclose in clause 13F. Right now, before going on to ICDS 10, just to conclude on ICDS 9, what you need to do is you need to check first whether there is any qualifying asset. If the answer is yes, then you check the interest, if there is any interest debited to profit and loss account. If the answer is yes, you need to check whether there is specific borrowing or whether there is general borrowing. Agar specific borrowing hai, so from the date of the loan, from the date of loan till the date when the asset is put to use, you have to capitalize. And if it is a general borrowing, you have to capitalize as per the formula of A into B by C, A into B by C. So this is something which you need to be mindful of, calculating interest as per ICDS 9. So therefore interest as per profit and loss account will not always be allowed as far as income tax is concerned, but as far as for calculation of interest allowability, you have to follow ICDS 9. You have to follow ICDS 9. Okay. So now moving on to the last ICDS, I'll take 10 minutes here and then we move to Q&A session. So provisions, contingent liabilities and contingent asset. ICDS deals with provision for liabilities, contingent liabilities and contingent asset. Exclusions, it does not include resulting from financial instrument, executory contracts, insurance business, because that is covered separately. It deals with, the act also deals with certain provisions like 36(1)(7)(a), that is provision for doubtful debts, provision for gratuity, that is 40(a)(7), other provision for bonus, etc., that is 43B. So this ICDS 10 will not cover those which is already covered in other sections.
This covers other provisions. This covers other provisions. मतलब for example year end provision जो है वो. Now if you look at pre-ICDS situation, the recognition is as per the accounting standard 29, which says provision to be recognized if it is probable that the outflow of economic resource will be required. However, ICDS says provision to be recognized if it is reasonably certain that the outflow of economic resources will be required. Now, probable is generally a very wide term. Probable is a very wide term as compared to reasonable certainty. Example, warranty provision. It could be argued that in both pre and post ICDS scenario, the warranty provision ought to be allowed to be recognized as it is arising out of past event, that is sale of goods, and not future event. I'll come to this warranty provision in the Supreme Court judgment in the subsequent slide. So here, what is the difference in the pre-ICDS and post-ICDS situation? Probable is replaced by reasonable certainty. Now, what do you mean by reasonable certainty? Reasonable certainty means more likely than not. That is more than 50% probability that this cash flow will be required. Okay. Probable matlab even if it is less than 50%, you could make the provision and you could claim that. But now in ICDS, it has become more stricter. Then we come to the concept of contingent asset. Contingent liability is nothing. It is not forming part of your financial asset. It is just as a disclosure in your financial asset. So therefore, no discussion is required for contingent liability. But yes, contingent asset requires discussion because it says virtual certainty, right? Pre-ICDS accounting standard says contingent asset will be recognized only when there is a virtual certainty, that is 100%. Because we follow the concept of prudence, asset matlab kya hota hai? Asset is recognized only when there is 100% certainty. Because we go conservative. But now ICDS bolta hai nahi. For contingent asset also, you should follow reasonable certainty. Matlab, again the same thing, if there is a reasonable certainty that you will receive this amount, then you have to recognize that as an asset. Abhi recognize as an asset kya hota hai? Asset ka dusra impact kidhar aayega? Mere P&L credit pe, that is income. So effectively it will be my income, and therefore they want to tax that as income. That is, they want to prepone the taxability of contingent asset. I'll come to the example. For a provision, there is a Supreme Court ruling. in the case of Rotok Control. It says that it is allowed as allowable expense, upholding the test of probable warranty obligation. Abhi warranty mein kya hota hai? It is calculated based on the scientific method. Okay. So since it is based on scientific method, it was allowed earlier. Whether it will be disallowed now, the answer is no, it will still be allowed. But the only point is you need to have proper documentation, which was required earlier also. You need to have robust documentation to claim this provision for warranty or any such provision for that matter. You should have proper documentation on the basis of how have we computed this provision, and there cannot be any ad hoc provision. Which will be allowed going forward. तो जो भी provision है उसका backup documentation होना बहुत जरूरी है to claim that as a allowable expense. This is the relevant extract of Rotok Controls. In the interest of the time, I am not reading it. I have already told you the concept which is laid down by the Supreme Court. You can go through this slide subsequently. So these are the issues: provision for liability, that is probable versus reasonable certainty. Now coming to the contingent asset, the case study. Okay. Now assume there is a litigation of indirect tax. That is custom duty refund or GST refund, as the case may be. Okay. Warranty provision. Now this is an example of warranty provision disallowed, assuming it is a case of indirect tax. Which is say in against me by the lower tax authorities. 2012, there is a demand raised by the tax authorities. Then matter went up to the tribunal and tribunal rejected in 2013. High Court allowed the claim to the assessee. High Court allowed the claim to the assessee in 2015. Transition year is at 2017. And the department filed an appeal before the Supreme Court, which was dismissed in 2019. Now here, the important aspect is there is another Supreme Court decision which is in my favor. There is another Supreme Court decision exactly on my facts which is in my favor. Likelihood of the favorable outcome due to this, because since it is a covered matter, the Supreme Court will obviously give the matter in my favor. So today, assuming I am in 2017, that is the transition year, the refund of taxes, that is refund of customs or GST as the case may be, and interest are bright. So this refund is a contingent asset to me, because until and unless there is a favorable ruling, by the Supreme Court, the department is not going to give me the refund. Now the question here to you is, in which year will this contingent asset be recognized as per ICDS 10? Based on our discussion just now, in the chat box quickly, in which year will this refund be considered as contingent asset and recognized as income? In the chat box quickly. Yes, when will it be taxed? Sonali says 2019. Others? अरे सो गए क्या? Quickly, in which year it will be taxable? 2019. Everybody says 2019. Unfortunately, the answer is 2017. I'll tell you why. Because in 2017, that is the year of transition. I have a reasonable certainty. Why reasonable certainty? Because one, High Court is already in my favor. Second, there is a Supreme Court ruling in my favor, because Supreme Court is the law of the land. The revenue appeal filed in the Supreme Court has to be dismissed. वो कब dismiss होगा वो पता नहीं. But since I have a Supreme Court ruling in my favor, it will be chargeable to tax in the year 2017. As per ICDS 10, again, which is against the principle of earlier taxability and against the concept of prudence. Normally, it should have been taxed in 2019. Logically, I agree with you that yes, it should be taxed in 2019. But because of this ICDS 10, now this will be taxed in 2017. Therefore, they are preponing the taxability. Right? So answer to this question based on these facts is that it will be chargeable to tax in 2017 and not in 2019. Okay, now, so that is all from my side on ICDS 7 to 10. Now what I have tried to do is I have tried to cover certain specimen, that is disclosures in form 13F. What will be relevant for you to review the tax audit reports which are shared by our team, that is the audit team. So here, if you look at the sample specimen, again, I repeat, I will be sharing this presentation to all of you. You can go through this. So this is how the disclosure is to be made in clause 13F. Accounting policies, you need not reproduce all the accounting policies. You can just give reference to the other notes of the financial statements जहाँ पे accounting policies mentioned है. Valuation of inventory, it is valued at lower of cost or NRV, whichever is lower. and the method followed, you have to give you the relevant method, that is FIFO, weighted average, etc. Construction contracts, if it is applicable, you mention, otherwise not applicable. Revenue recognition, again you can give reference to the financial statements, because corporate assessees के केस में revenue recognition का disclosure already रहता है in my notes to financial statements or notes to accounts. You can give reference to the notes to financial statements or do a copy paste here. Tangible fixed assets के लिए हमारे पास clause 18 है form number 3CD का, that is my tax depreciation schedule. You can give reference to tax depreciation schedule as per clause 18, and or you can reproduce that disclosure again here, your choice. Government grants अगर applicable है तो लिखो, नहीं तो कुछ नहीं. Borrowing cost, again for the policy you can give reference to the notes to financial statements. Provision, contingent liabilities, contingent asset, you have to give the description, etc. And again same thing, you can refer your notes to accounts. So therefore for major disclosures you can refer to notes to accounts. अगर notes to accounts में appropriate disclosure नहीं है, then you will have to create your own disclosure. I'm sure our DPP team, the DPP audit team has come out with the standard disclosures. And for you also it is relevant that you be consistent, because we are one firm for the outsiders. If we are consistent in all the disclosures, then all the team should be on the same page and all the disclosures should be the same. Okay, so that's all from my side. If there are any questions, Abhishek, I'll be happy to take it up. Else we can call it a day. Any questions in the chat box or Q&A? I can't see any question. No questions. It means either you have understood everything or you have understood nothing.
So Vyomesh, since we're taking questions, I think we can also announce that anybody who wants to vocally raise any questions, you can raise your hand. We will give you
you
the
can
speaking
raise your
rights.
hand. If you want to ask the question orally, you can raise your hand. Abhishek will unmute you and you can ask your questions.
Precisely,
Not necessary you have to type only.
So I'm going to go ahead and launch the feedback polls in the meantime.
Yeah, sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So the feedback polls are now in progress. Since we have come to the end of the session, just waiting for a couple of minutes more if there are any more questions. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and end the session. If there are any questions, please post it to the Q&A or a chat, or you can raise your hand. But we don't see any questions at the moment. Okay.
Aniket has raised his hand.
Yes. Aniket, you have been unmuted.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, actually, Vyomesh, it's actually not a question as such, but I would like just to give you a thank you note as such. Till the time, if anybody has any questions, they would just raise the hand, or maybe we can take it later. But at one point, I would like to say here is from on behalf of each and every person attending this particular session. First of all, a warm congratulations to you for completing 11 years with KPMG. So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
First of all, actually, thanks a lot for taking out time from your busy schedule and taking up this particular training session for all of us at ICOE. Considering your broad experience on various topics at tax and other related things, and obviously I know that ICDS being your favorite one, listening to you has always been a great experience. So you explained all the points in lucid and most insightful manner. That's what I would say, and a big thank you for you to you for this. And also thanks to Abhishek and L&D team for organizing this kind of session. And Ramesh, particularly, you are for all of us at ICOE has been a guide and a ready reckoner, and we look up to you for any problem, anything with respect to ICDS. Since we are thinking of maybe including this, implementing this ICDS related comments and all in our ICOE related work in near future. We look forward to your support, your guidance, and once again, a big thank you from all of us.
Sure,
So
sure.
that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Abhishek.
Thank you,
And
Ankit.
all to please, if you have any particular question, you can ask them right now, or if in case you want to go through the PPT, which Vyomesh will obviously share with us, and post that if you have any particular questions, Vyomesh will be happy to
Yeah,
maybe address.
definitely. I am a part of KPMG only, and you can ask me the questions even after today. It is not that you have a limited window available to ask me the questions. I am always a call or mail away, or even a WhatsApp message away. You can get in touch with me anytime to discuss the questions or any issues you have for anything in relation to this, and I'll be happy to take it up.
Okay.
Abhishek, there is one comment in the chat box by Raj Lakshmi that she is not able to submit the feedback.
So Raj Lakshmi, actually, if there's a particular feedback, you can also post it to the mail, but it will not be possible for us to relaunch the poll.
Okay.
So maybe you can try logging out and log in again, but I don't think that will be required as much. So with that, I think there are no further questions
Okay.
as such. And
Okay.
with that, we can go ahead and end the session. So very, very big thank you to you, Vyomesh. Thanks for coming and speaking on the session. I'm sure I'm speaking on all of ICO even. We are thanking you for that, as Ankit said.
Yeah.
So if anybody has any more questions, you can always reach out to Vyomesh. I'm sure he'll be very happy to assist. And I think it's been a great session. So please fill in the feedback poll, after which you can log off. And if there is any more relevant information, such as project codes or the training material, it will be shared with you post the session. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. Have a very wonderful weekend ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your patient listening.
Okay. Thank you, Vyomesh. So Vyomesh, just a quick note.
Yeah.
Once you log off, you'll see a processing screen, because I see that you are also recording. So
Yeah.
let that processing complete, and you will have a copy of this recording with your My Documents in your My Documents Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Okay.
Awesome. So thanks
Thank you.
for everybody for joining in. Thank you, Vyomesh. Have a nice
Yeah.
weekend, everybody. Bye.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
We are now ending the session. We are now ending the session. If you have filled in the feedback poll, you can now log off. Thank you.
Yeah. So Abhishek,
Yes, Vyomesh.
can we have this results of this poll shared to me separately?
Yeah,
Or
we can share a feedback report with you.
yeah.
You can also see what is directly over here, but we'll share a more
Yes,
appropriate
please.
report with you.
Yes. Yes. Please. Please.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, you can log off now, because that processing will take a little time.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
know.
it'll heat the laptop up as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
you can log off.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome.